Hey, thanks for joining today. I'm checking out two very popular tents, the Big Agnes Copper Spur versus the Nemo Dagger here. Both two-person tents. So there's plenty of specs online about weight, so I'm just doing a real-world test here. Checking out the Big Agnes first. It's obviously going to be a little bit lighter. I'm checking that both with and without the footprint that comes, that's an option with the tent. So 3.10 all in for the Big Agnes, and then Nemo is going to run a little bit heavier because I think it's built a little bit better. We'll get to that later, but once I add that footprint for the Dagger, it's at about 4.10 instead. Alright, so as far as setup, we're not going to do a full setup video because there's plenty of those online that you can watch, but just some key points here as I go through each of these. You can see the Nemo we're going to set up first, and I am using Nemo's footprint that they offer as an option just for additional waterproofing under the tent. The stakes that this tent comes with are, I think, pretty durable. I like how they feel as they go into the ground, but they will get a little bit beat up as you use a hammer or a rock to get those pounded in. So I'm setting up the tent here, just the tent by itself first, and I like to stake all four corners, and just in case there's wind. And then once that's staked in, I'll get the poles out. They come in this new, non-dyed bag. The bag works fine. It gets a little dirty, but it's no big deal. And the tent has one piece for all of the poles. It all is hooked together, which is important to note. So I'm just laying the poles out there. You can see that it's got that yellow top piece. They don't say if it goes on the top or bottom. I've done it both ways. It hasn't made a difference, so I'll leave it at the bottom there. And then they have the Jake's feet, so that's just a little ball socket for each of these four corners to hook into, which works pretty well. Once that's done, I'll take the middle of the tent and use that yellow piece and hook the center to both. Again, those little ball joints, they just snap in. Doing it with one hand is a little bit hard, but you can see it is possible while I'm filming. And then I just snap the tent together. These both work pretty similar as far as setting the poles up, clipping them on. They're really straightforward. So the Copper Spur comes in a pretty recognizable large logoed bag there. Everything fits in just fine, no big deal with that. And again, I've got the ground cloth from Big Agnes that I'm using. So these stakes, I don't actually like them quite as much. They're a little smaller, but again, they're probably a little bit less weight, so that works fine. The pole here is one piece, but there is an additional little skinny piece that goes on top that maybe could be lost if you're out in the field. Otherwise, setup is pretty similar. You're just staking it down, and then again, I'm putting all four corners into the ground before I do the poles, just in case there's wind. Instead of the Jake's feet, this one has just little sockets that the poles and the everything clips into, and they are color coded, of course, orange to orange, gray to gray. But here is the additional piece I mentioned, so that's going to sit on top, and that's how you're going to then adhere the centerpiece and have it spread out for a lot of room on both sides. So good looking tent overall. Both actually set up really well, very easy as you would expect. So let's get into just the inner tent itself before we put the flies on, just taking a look at both of these. The Dagger has a really nice rectangular space inside, so that is really good if you're going to have two actual people using this versus, just one and maybe some space. Zippers on the Dagger work great. They're, I think, a little bit easier to open than the Big Agnes, but they both work fine. And you can see there's a little clip there to keep it opened up if you're not concerned about bugs. Nice, clear, darker mesh on the top so you can see the sky a bit easier, and then you've got that white mesh on the sides for privacy. It also has a little clip on the top you can open to hang a lantern or something, which is handy. And there are pockets throughout. The orange pocket's cool for nighttime. It's going to diffuse your headlight a little bit. And then you have the pockets on the sides and all four corners, different shapes and sizes. So overall, really nice setup on that tent. You can see that bottom area there is actually waterproofed. We'll get into some testing on that in just a minute. Versus the Big Agnes does have a taper to it, as you can see in the specs on their website. So it's a little bit smaller as far as trying to shove two pads in side by side. But zippers work fine, opens about the same. The material is going to be a little bit lighter on this because it is lighter weight tent, but you still have the same features with it clipping in. You've got the door keeper if you want to open the door temporarily, that works just fine. And overall, there's good space, but again, the biggest call out here is this floor is a bit tapered in size from the head to the foot, whereas the Nemo is not. But nice spacing, nice pockets. You can see this has the white mesh all around, so it's not quite as easy to see at the top, but that white mesh is there for privacy. So lots of pockets in this one, and in addition to those corner pockets that we have on all four sides, I just really enjoyed that larger storage area that's on the top of the tent that can be used for putting in maybe a light coat or something. Just a lot of nice storage space there. So let's get into the rain flies now. The material for the dagger is that new Osmo material, which seems a little bit more heavy duty than what they had in the past. Otherwise, functionality works just about the same. You can clip it into the center area first using these two yellow toggles, and then all four sides are going to snap into the Jake's feet that we saw a second ago, which honestly is a little tough at first, but you do get used to that. So you can set this up with it half open as long as it's not too windy for a nice breeze. You can have more privacy by setting up additional stakes which are included, and having the door more private, or rolling back one side and having some more breeze come through, or opening the whole thing as you can see here and still having the fly on top. So really good for ventilation. Alright, so there are two tabs you can open on both doors for ventilation. So those are door-based instead of built into the roof, but they work fine. There's also a cool landing zone, which sounds like a gimmick, but it's actually pretty handy. It just clips in with color-coded tabs, and then once that's in, you can use that to put additional gear or whatever that may not fit inside the tent. It doesn't weigh much either. There's only one of those for the tent though, so note that. You also want to ventilate both of the top and bottom areas by using some cord, and in this case I just made a quick clip just to make it easier, and that will pull the tent front and back away some to let air go inside the tent. Alright, so let's check out the Big Agnes fly now. The Big Agnes is going to be a lighter material just due to the weight savings, but still works fine. And it clips in the same way. You've got these poles that are both going to clip into pockets in the center there. And then once that's done, you have color-coded snaps on all four sides, and you can then pull those tight. Those have a reflective coating on them, which is nice. You can see those as you're walking through at night. So as far as ventilation, you can leave it half open as long as there's not a lot of wind, which I'm doing here. But you will make sure with the fly on that you are allowing adequate airflow from the bottom. So there are these stakeout points and stakes included to do that for this tent, just like there was with the Nemo. You can then have the door fully closed if you're looking for weatherproofing or privacy. This fly does actually include additional tie-down points that are built into the fly, and the cords are already pre-tied there, so that'd be good for a more windy situation. And there are the toggles as well for the doors. You can hold the door open, as you can see there, about halfway for privacy, or you can fully open it to allow more air in, just like the Nemo. And then it's got this roll top on the, where the two poles can open up and have a little atrium area. I've never actually used that. I just kind of roll it up, or I can just shove it under like a lot of folks do if you don't feel like rolling it up. The inside, again, with the fly on is pretty bright. Now this is a long version, so you can see the fly in this case is lighter. And in this case, instead of having the pop for the vent on the doors, it's on the top there to allow ventilation in, which works fine. So let's go ahead and set up some gear inside our tent. So I'm using a Quasar 3D from Nemo for both of these. So just showing that fully inflated first in the Big Agnes, and you can see pretty clearly here how that foot room in the bottom tapers in as far as two 25-inch wide mats. It'd be kind of a difficult fit. I'm 6'3", and my toes can touch, but there is still plenty of room, a little bit of room between my head and my feet. A little headroom as well. I'm sitting in the middle here, and it's got a few inches of space, so it's fine sitting up. But you can see how great that gear loft is for storing stuff. It's a really nice feature. So same setup here in the Nemo, and the big difference is since it's rectangular, you have plenty of space for two actual 25-inch wide pads. Again, feet touch because I'm a tall guy, but there's still plenty of room as you're lying down here, both for your feet and for your head. It's just because these walls are steep in both tents, so they're really made well for that. Headroom is pretty similar. Again, specs probably say something different, but as far as usage, it feels about the same with both tents. It is a pretty day, but I wanted to simulate some wind, so to do that I used the blower here on full blast, and you can see that the Dagger is doing a good job, even with those doors open, of staying nice and taut with direct wind to the sides. And this is where the Big Agnes does not do as well. The stakes and everything are firm, but it just has more fabric that I think moves around with the wind that you can see. So again, I'm doing the test this time from the door, and again, both are okay, but I'm noticing more movement with the fabric on the Big Agnes. You can see here I am showing you that the fly is fully tightened in all four corners, and it just flops around some. And I did try to keep moving that stake out into both sides. It just wouldn't get fully taut for some reason, so maybe that's just my version, I'm not sure, but I did notice that Nemo did a much better job, both with the doors open and closed, on being strong with the wind. So then we decided to make it rain. So I've got rain coming from the top, and the Osmo fabric is doing a great job of beating up and the water is dripping off. But to be honest with you, I saw similar results from both tents when it came to the rain. So both from the side with that vent open, as you can see on the door, try to make sure nothing goes through there. And it didn't, it stayed nice and dry with that vent and the functionality there. And you can see too that side is exposed on the dagger, but it does stay dry with that one piece underneath the fly. Opening it up and checking for any water, there was none, everything was fine. Obviously this wasn't a full rain test. I have camped in this thing out in the field in the rain, and it's always been fine, I've had no issues, but just comparing it here you can see that it stayed dry. The copper spur also stays dry. The fabric is a bit lighter, as we talked about already, on the fly, but it's doing a fine job of repelling water, and this one is a brand new tent, so it definitely should be doing that. But I imagine over the course of time it's gonna function the same. The water is beating and dripping off the bottom and staying off that second layer. And I am testing it both from the sides and from the top, just trying to make sure that with the vents open everything still stays dry. And in fact, both tents do. So no issues here with the minimal rain that I applied through that test with the sprinkler. I then came back an hour later just to check to see how much moisture was retained on the fabric, thinking that Osmo would do better here, but to be honest, they both were very similar as far as the amount of rain that was still left. And of course, with more wind and more sun, it would dry a bit quicker. So where does that leave us? Honestly, both are good tents. That is the bottom line. It really just depends more on the design you like better, if weight's more important, or if having that rectangular space is more important. But ultimately, I decided to keep the Nemo Dagger. I just liked the features that it offered, and I felt like it was a little bit just more substantial in the tent. But honestly, I think either is going to do well for you. So thanks for checking this video out. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and we'll see you on the next one.